Every single day, we're creating just this insane amount of data. We're talking everything from your social media posts and emails to sensor readings from a factory floor and all our business transactions. Now, storing all that stuff is one thing, but actually making sense of it, that's the real puzzle. So let's dive into one of the most popular solutions for this. And we're going to start with a really powerful analogy to get our heads in the right space. And wow, this quote from James Dixon, the guy who literally invented the term, it just nails it. This is the core idea we're going to keep coming back to. On the one hand, you've got purified, bottled water. It's clean, it's packaged, it's super easy to just grab and drink. On the other hand, you have a huge natural lake. The potential is massive, right? You can do anything with that water. But first, you got to figure out how to get it, how to filter it, and how to use it. Just keep that image in your mind. All right, so let's stick with that picture in our heads, this big natural lake. What does that actually mean in the tech world? What exactly is this lake of raw data? Okay, so here's the textbook definition, but let's break it down. A data lake is a place to store a vast amount of raw data, and it keeps it in its original native format. But the most important part of this sentence is that last little phrase, until it is needed. See, unlike older ways of doing things, you don't have to clean it up or structure it or process it before you store it. You just pour it all in. And this visual, it really helps, right? You can just see it. All these different streams of data are flowing into the lake. You've got your structured stuff like tidy spreadsheets and databases, but then you also have all the messy, unstructured stuff, emails, pictures, social media feeds, you name it. It all goes into the same reservoir. And then once it's in there, that's where the magic happens. You can run all sorts of analysis, and then that outflow, that's where you sift through it all to pull out those golden nuggets of insight. Okay, so this naturally leads to a really big comparison. Before the data lake came along, the king of the castle was something called the data warehouse. So how does this new flexible lake stack up against that traditional, super structured warehouse? And bam! This slide just lays it all out perfectly. Look at the left side, the data warehouse. All the data that comes in has to be cleaned, processed, and squeezed into a very specific predefined structure before it even gets stored. You do all the hard work up front. But then, on the right, you see the data lake. It's totally different. Everything just gets dumped in, raw and untouched. You only decide how to organize and structure a piece of data when you have a specific question you want to answer. So this gets us to probably the biggest, most fundamental difference between the two. It's a bit technical, but our analogy makes it super clear. It's called schema-on-write versus schema-on-read. A data warehouse is schema-on-write. Think about our bottled water again. This means you have to design the exact shape of the bottle, that's the schema, before you can put any water in it. But a data lake? It's schema-on-read. You just pour all the water into the lake, and only later, when you go to read or use the data, do you decide what kind of bottle you want to put it in. The flexibility here is just a total game changer. So let's just run through the highlights here, side by side. The data in a warehouse, it's structured and processed, perfect for business analysts who need clean, reliable reports. The data in a lake? It's everything, all raw. That's a paradise for data scientists who want to explore and hunt for hidden patterns. Now, because of all that upfront work, warehouses are way more expensive and a lot more rigid. Lakes, on the other hand, use cheaper storage for all that raw data, so they are much, much more cost-effective and super agile. All right, so you might be thinking, okay, I get it, it's different, but why bother? Why is everyone so excited about building a data lake? Well, it really all boils down to the demands of the world we live in now. Data lakes are built from the ground up to handle the absolutely massive explosion in data volumes. They're the fuel for modern AI and machine learning, which need enormous amounts of raw, messy data to learn from. They give data scientists the freedom to ask weird, complex questions, which means you get to valuable insights way faster. And maybe best of all, they can scale up massively without breaking the bank. But okay, let's be real. It is not a perfect, magical solution. There's a dark side. There's a catch, a big one. A data lake, if you're not careful, can very quickly turn into something much, much worse, a data swamp. And listen to this warning from PricewaterhouseCoopers. It is pretty chilling. The biggest risk is creating a big data graveyard. You just dump everything in there thinking, oh, we'll figure out what to do with it later. But without any organization or context, you just lose track of what's in there. It becomes this murky, polluted, completely unusable mess. So what's the deal? How does a beautiful, promising data lake turn into a disgusting swamp? Well, it usually comes down to a few key failures. First, no governance. That means no rules of the road for how data is handled. Second, no data catalog. That's like having a giant library with no system to find a book. And finally, if there are no checks on data quality, you can't trust anything you find anyway. It all just snowballs into a system that's too complex and too messy to be of any use to anyone. The good news is it's totally avoidable. You just have to be smart about it from the beginning. So how do you keep your lake clean and healthy? It really comes down to 3 key things. First, you have to implement strong data governance, those essential rules of the road. Second, you absolutely need a searchable data catalog so people can actually find what they're looking for. And third, you have to prioritize metadata management. Metadata is just data about your data, and it's what makes everything tagged, organized, and understandable. This stuff can't be an afterthought. It's absolutely crucial. So we've got this tension, right? The wild freedom of the lake versus the rigid reliability of the warehouse. And that very problem, that balancing act, is what's pushing us toward the next big thing in how we handle data. And here it is, the Lakehouse. I know, the name is a little on the nose, but it perfectly describes what it is. It's a hybrid. It aims to give you the best of both worlds. As you can see, it handles all data types and has amazing support for machine learning, just like a data lake. But it also brings back some of the most important features from the data warehouse, like reliability and data quality rules, to make sure it never, ever turns into a swamp. Which brings us right back to where we started, but with a much bigger perspective. The amount of data in our world isn't slowing down. It's only going to get bigger and bigger. So the real challenge ahead isn't just about building bigger and bigger lakes to hold it all. It's about figuring out the governance, the tools, and the strategies we need to turn these massive bodies of raw information, not into murky swamps, but into true, crystal clear oceans of insight.